Okay, so the second question is, what was the jumping off point that got you to your healing? So I think the jumping off point really for me was just like fighting for 2 years and just being really, really exhausted. And when you've been fighting for 2 years, like you just get to a point that you're like, I can't do this anymore. Something has to change. And, I joke, but this is a real story. Like there was this day that I was just really angry and I got on the ground and like a 5-year-old, I was slamming and like tantruming on the ground. And I literally looked like a 5-year-old. I was screaming at God and I was just pounding my fist. And at that point, my heater failed. Like it just like turned off and it got really cold. It was a cold day. And I was just like, are you kidding me, God? Like, you're going to throw all of this on top of me? Like, I already am dealing with all this stuff. And God's like, hey, girl, at least I didn't break your hip. And, I love that our Father can be very funny and genuine with that, but it was true. There was a point in which it was like I was fighting him so hard. It was like Jacob trying to get his promise. And God's like, I'm gonna give you a warning before I break your hip. And I just love that about God. We're going back to David Jonathan, but we were also talking about Ziba and we were talking about Mephibosheth. And I think it's so in this entire story, there's so much symbolism that happens in this story. And one of the biggest things that I think sometimes we forget or we don't see is that Ziba was Saul's servant. And Ziba, at the end of the day, acts like a servant. He acts like a slave. And because he didn't really care about the relationship with David, he cared about getting the promise or getting the wealth, getting the field and the things that he stole basically from Mephibosheth by lying about what Mephibosheth had done. Whereas Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son and he acted like a son. And at the end of the day, he says the very last thing we hear him say is, I don't care about the land or about all the riches and the goods. Like, I just care that you're home. I just care, David, about your relationship and that you're here with me again. And I feel like that is the jumping off point for me, was that I was living like a slave and I was acting like a servant, demanding for a promise through manipulation and slavery, when God had created me to be a daughter and going through that sonship or that daughtership, and knowing my worth through that. And I think once I realized that was really the jumping off and the biggest part of my healing.